Okay, so this next episode is
talk about amphibians.
Before reptiles evolved, the amphibians did, and so your favorite amphibian is today's creature, and that is
the largest amphibian, one of the largest amphibians.
Okay.
Specifically, the South China giant salamander.
Oh, and when you say giant,
I'm talking up to 5.9 feet long and weighing 130 pounds big.
so longer than me but weighs less.
Yeah.
That's
Haha, you're chubby. But yes, we're talking giant salamanders.
okay.
There's a couple species. There's two species from China and one from South America. One from Japan.
Okay.
There's two from China, one from Japan.
Okay.
These live up in the mountain streams, and they're absolutely giant, like we have discussed.
And these are freshwater.
Yes.
Okay, these are all freshwater.
Amphibians are freshwater.
Oh, okay,
Amphibians
that's
don't live in
amphibian.
salt water
Okay.
because they breathe through their skin, through the water.
Okay.
If they were in salt water, they would probably die.
Okay.
Actually, no, they would die. I'm
They
not
would
saying,
die.
but they would die.
Okay.
So if they live in the water, it's freshwater.
And you do mention here that though they are that big, they are only the second biggest amphibian.
Okay, no. So first of all, this is alive. Prehistoric things get a lot bigger.
Oh, okay.
In
So they're
general.
the largest living.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Largest living.
Okay.
But also, it's because I was talking about the Chinese giant salamander.
Okay.
The South China giant salamander is slightly larger.
Okay.
So the Chinese giant salamanders are the largest.
Okay.
But between the Chinese giant salamanders, there's the subspecies.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So yes, so I see what I was talking about the South China. Then I say I switch to the Chinese giant.
Okay.
So then I say I go back, but today's focus is actually the largest.
The largest. Okay.
It makes sense if you read it, maybe. I don't know.
And as with many things in Asian culture, medicine and food, and so they were used in many ways. And how has that impacted?
As far as we know, the South China giant salamander is extinct in the wild.
Okay.
There's probably no more in the wild.
Okay.
And the Chinese giant salamander are critically endangered. Like,
Okay.
there's probably 50 to 100. Who knows? There's a very small amount of them out there.
Okay.
Our way to note, they live in mountain streams, so even when they had a healthy population, probably wasn't that big to begin with.
Okay.
And now it's just worse.
Okay. Are there any zoos that currently have these and are trying to
Chinese giant salamanders are in zoos.
Okay. Are they the breeding programs really?
The problem is when we get down so specifically to like subspecies,
Right.
it's hard to know which one's which.
Right.
So there's current efforts to try to figure out what salamanders are what.
Okay.
For example, with lions, they've just given up. They just preserve lions now. They don't
Right.
worry about subspecies.
Whether it's an Asian or a
Okay, Asians don't. The Asian one's weird. Don't talk. The Asian
Okay.
one's weird. But in general, lions are just lions.
Okay.
They might end up
Okay.
doing that with the Chinese giant salamander. I
Okay.
don't know.
Okay.
But if we get specifically down to subspecies, it's like we have, and they can breed with each other. So there could be mixed breeds, and like how does that work?
Right.
That's a big problem with bison.
Right.
Because bison are bred with cows to make these hybrids.
Right.
But we want purebred bison out
bison,
there because
right.
that's what evolved out there.
Right.
So that's a whole you can't tell if they're mixed breeds because they still look like a bison. They don't actually really adapt the traits of a cow.
Out here in Illinois, the Midwin, are
Yes,
those purebred?
Those are purebred.
Purebred bison.
I believe Fermilab also has purebreds.
Purebreds. Okay.
I think
Okay.
for all those, but I don't know. I mean, maybe they don't even know.
And if you haven't been out to Midwin and seen the herd.
Yes.
Herd?
They essentially, even though it is contained in an area and they are wrangled sometimes for safety checks, they are essentially wild bison.
They are essentially free roaming because the area is so
which
massive.
is about
right.
which is essentially the only wild population of bison in Illinois.
Because the ones at Fermi it's a much smaller.
Yes, and
area.
that's in a fenced-in area.
Okay.
Specific, like technically these other ones are, but
Right.
like
It's massive.
they leave them out in the wild.
Right.
Essentially, it's the process of making them wild. Again.
Okay. Oh, that's right. So the ones at Fermi, it's a much smaller area fenced in, and they have enclosures and things
Yes.
they can go into. The ones out at Midwin are on. I'm going to use the term on their own. I mean, not really. They are
yes.
monitored, but they are
Yes.
effectively on their own
Yes.
365 days a year.
Yeah.
Okay. So interesting. Again, our brains left turn back
But it's
on the
talking
rails.
about animals. It's fine.
And then you mentioned you were talking about the difference between farming animals
Yes.
and
For example, I use alligators as an example.
right.
There are alligator farms, believe it or not. They're
Right,
actually
yes.
pretty common.
Yeah.
But if you eat an alligator from an alligator farm, it's fine.
Okay.
But if you like go to a random country in the Bahamas might be a country. I don't know. If you go to a random country out there and you get this random dish, maybe just don't eat it, just in case it's unsafely collected.
Right.
Especially in China, they just use everything as food.
Yeah,
It's
food
just
and medicine. That
food
seems
and
to be
medicine.
a thing. Traditional
Yes.
Chinese food and medicine.
Yes.
And everything. It seems that everything that lived in China has at some point or another been declared a delicacy.
Yes.
It's pretty much.
From
if
baby pangolins to Komodo dragon livers to tiger penises.
yeah,
I'm not joking on that last one.
They'll pretty much anything's a delicacy if
Yeah.
you add rice, I guess.
Yeah.
All right. So I think any other interesting facts about
No, I
China
think that's
stuff?
this is a plushie.
Oh,
I
yeah,
don't know
the
what
details of it.
brand,
Yeah.
but it's a stuffed animal, so
It's just
I
ador-
give more leeway to stuffed animals because they're stuffed animals.
Yeah, it's-
You can't get as detailed as with a plastic mouth.
It's just adorable.
Just go.